Alright, so what we're doing, we're starting from exercise 8. We are going to format a spreadsheet. So we're using the same donations Excel that you would have created. It says at point number 2 at exercise 8, to apply the comma format to numeric data and keep this decimal place to 0. So how do you do that? Okay, that's the comma format there. So where's the shortcut fit for persons who don't know how to go into there? Shortcut is right on the number. Comma right there, go click on it. Click on it again. Doesn't it take it off? Good, either way, but it added decimal places. So reduce the decimal place to 0, good. So that is how you add the comma formatting and reduce the decimal places. How do you bold now? Highlight the headings in bold. Great. And change the font of the headings in row 3 to Arial 14 points with blue color. Okay. Good. Great. So those are the options there for changing your font, size, and color there. Use wrap text option on the headings in row 3. So we highlight and we select the wrap text option. Great. And select all the headings in the worksheet. Click on the drop down arrow to the right of the border icon and select outside border. Great, so that's how we add borders there. Alright, so let's move on to exercise 9. Any questions on this exercise before we move on? Exercise 9, using sort, filter, and the pivot table. So you were supposed to enter the following data into the worksheet, starting at A1. I'm assuming you have this in another file or something. Results. Good. So student ID, subject, grade, and age. Select the range of data and name it lang. So how do you name that range? Good. So you highlight and you use the name box there. Great. Now sort the data by grade in ascending order. Great. So whenever we are sorting one column of data, we would only select one cell from that specific column. So you selected grade and you sort. So sort the subject in ascending, so we're doing a double level sort now. Subject in ascending and grade in descending. I'm checking out this BHP.
Yeah, you didn't check it. Check how you come.
Okay,
Don't use your phone. It's very, And
yes.
Just check and see if you look good on phone.
True. Yes, how are we doing the double level sorting? Because I don't think you did it. No. When you're sorting two columns, you do not use that sort option. Which option is he supposed to use, class? When you start in two columns. And 6 of you in here, not one of you know. The question is, what is the option you use when you start in two columns? The question is, what is the option you use when you're starting two columns?
The custom sort.
The custom sorts. So in the custom sort here is where you add the two levels of sorting. So you're supposed to firstly put subject in ascending order, and then you add a level. The option is right there to add a level. And this is where you put the other level of sorting, grade, in descending order. And that is how you sort two columns of data. Any questions before we move on? Point number 5, we're supposed to use the auto filter to view the following data. So turn on your auto filter. Someone guide him to turn on the auto filter. Nobody knows how to turn on the auto filter?
Sir, you go into data. And there's a filter option at the top.
You have to click a cell in your table first before you select.
Oh yeah, so I forgot to say that. I have to click a cell.
Good. So now your auto filter is on. It says you have to filter for age that is only 18.
Yes.
Good. Subjects with grade 4. Okay. And students who are under 18 with grade 2. Okay. And all subjects ending in ISH. Great. Now, undo. I would have also mentioned that click on the arrow, that checking off those boxes is the manual way of filtering. And if you notice, there's a text filter there. Just hover your cursor over it. Those are the options you should be making use of if you're going to filter some sort of data. Alright, so let's look at creating the advanced filter. So we're going to create a filter to select our students who obtain grades 1 to 2. So his data there is highlighted. His criteria. He just highlighted his criteria there. And now he has to select his location. Very good. So you have an output there of grades 1 to 2. So for all of you, please remember, for advanced filter, there's 3 things you need: the data, the criteria, and the location. Now the next criteria is grades 1 or students older than 17. The question is, why did you separate it? You're not actually supposed to separate it for OR criteria. Close that off. That greater than 17 there. Alright, on the age, before we get to there, when you write an OR criteria, this is a question to everyone. When you write an OR criteria, how are you supposed to write it? How are you supposed to write this criteria here?
Sir, in different lines.
In different lines, very good. So in the same area, but in different lines, that's how you're supposed to create it. So that greater than 17 is supposed to be right next to that less than 1 that you have there. So grades with 1 or students older than 17. Good. So that's it there. That's your criteria. So now complete the advanced filter. So he's highlighting his data. He's going to highlight his criteria. He's going to copy to another location, select his location. One thing to note, when you're selecting the location, you don't need to highlight. You could simply click on one cell and it will start from that one cell. Click OK. And we have our output of our data there. Very good. Point number 7. Any questions on the advanced filter before we move on? Point number 7. Use the pivot table feature to count the number of students who have results for each subject. You could have modified the same one. So he has subject in the rows, but I think it's saying count the number of students who have results for each subject. So, okay, good. So it's counting the student, because that's to count the ID. So 2 students have grades for English, 2 have grades for French, and 3 have grades for Spanish. So that's exactly what it's asking. It's asking for the subject, for each subject, and it's counting the students there. Very good. It says to count the number of students in each age group. So he has, in that pivot table there, he has age, but he's also doing a sum of age, and he's also counting the age. So one student is at age 14, another one is at 15, 3 is at 16, and 2 of them are at 18. Good. Then it says to create a table with grades in the rows. Grades in the rows and the subject in the column. Then show how many students obtain each grade for the different subjects, and you counted it. Good. So 2 got a grade 2 for English, 1 got a grade 1 for French, and so on. Now, question to everyone. What is the type of table above and what is the type of table below?
Sir, the first one is one-dimensional.
Correct. The last one?
Sir, two-dimensional.
Correct. So, what is the difference? Anyone?
Sir, one-dimensional, sum or count the data.
No, that's not correct. It's one-dimensional because it only has data either in the row or the column. Click on the table, the first table, top left. If you notice, it only has data in the row. There's nothing in the column, so it's one-dimensional. Click on the other one. There is, good, for the bottom one now, there is data in the row and the column. And click on the other table now. So that one's two-dimensional. And this table here is also two-dimensional, because if you notice, he has values in the columns area there. So once you have data in both, it's two-dimensional. And once you only have it in one, either one, it is one-dimensional. Any questions on the pivot table before we move on? All right, so exercise 10. Enter the following data into the worksheet. So that's going to be languages. Good, so that's the data there, great. Sort the data by language in ascending order. Great, we right click, sort, and we choose the correct sort option. Correct. Sort percentage of population in descending. Right click once again. Sort, great. And use the advanced filter to find languages that rank in the top 10 with more than 150. Good, so he's highlighting his data. He's going to highlight his criteria. Copy to another location. Let's select the location. Okay. Great. We have the output of the data there. Good, and the last one, no, second to last. Use the advanced filter to find languages with either rank in the top 10 or more than 150. So in the meantime, he's doing that. Notice the difference here, the visual difference between the AND criteria and the OR. AND has it in the same line, and OR has it in different lines. Should consider plugging in your computer. Right, so we have output data. And notice, if you guys look at the output data, notice even though both are the same criteria, less than 11, greater than 150, they give you different outputs based on the type of criteria. Any questions on advanced filter here before we move on? All right, the last point. Create a frequency distribution of the speakers and show in intervals of 150. Create the pivot table over again for those persons who may not know what to do. So firstly, you have to create your pivot table. To do a frequency distribution. So he's highlighting his data. He's going to pick his location. Good. And it's that simple to create a pivot table. So now he wants a frequency distribution for speakers. So whatever frequency distribution you want, you would have to put that in the row. And how do you create that frequency distribution? Anyone? What does he need to do next? What does he need to do next? Next, you need to group your data. So you're supposed to right click on the data now. Now in the pivot table, on the data, not the column, on the numbers in the table. Good. And that's where you're going to find the group option. And the group option is where you create your frequency distribution. So you can say from what to what it is going to group the data. So at the very bottom, you can say group by maybe 100. Go back in and set the group by to 100. Good. So notice there it's now in a frequency of 100. Good. Any questions on this exercise before we move on? All right, thank you, Ray Mario. A round of applause for Ray Mario. So next we have Jada, Tasani, Jasmine. Which one of you will be presenting? Alright, so we're at exercise 11 and we are required, you did well though, you're required to enter the data shown in 7.58, select the range B1 to C9 and locate the chart wizard on insert, view the chart type and select column. Great. Once your chart has been created, you can modify your chart, add various layouts, edit the other parts, and so on. Now, you can design your chart however you wanted. A quick tip when designing your chart. So, if you guys had read this chapter, or if you had watched the class, you should have learned that a chart has a few elements that you need to add. That is the axis titles, the chart title, the data type, and those kind of things. So Jasmine, Jada just added it using that plus. But if you click on the chart, a quick way of adding these elements is to click on the chart and go to design and go to the very left. You're going to see quick layout. Now on the one before it, add chart elements, is actually how you would add your elements. So if you want axis titles, you can hover over it and click on one. If you want a chart title, you could click on one also and you would add it. But you just clicked on the axis title, that's why I took it off. Good. But delete the chart. I want to show something. So that's how you would manually add it. So if we create a chart, good. So you just created a chart. A quick way of adding all of your necessary elements is go to design, go to quick layout, and if you notice you have about 9, 10, 11 layouts here, and if you hover over them, you can notice the different elements that it would add for you. So this one has the different titles, and if you go, just hover over all of them one by one, and it shows you the different quick layouts it would add in. So I think it's the ninth one. The ninth one would add everything that you would actually need. So this one here, it adds the title, it adds your horizontal axis title, your vertical axis title, and even your legend so that you can see the data. So that's a quick way of adding your elements to the charts. Alright, so we're at exercise 12 now. Moving the chart. How do we move the chart? You right click on the corner of the chart and select Move Charts. Now, when you select New Sheet and you click OK, and it's going to take it to a new sheet. Click OK. Does anyone know what is the name of this sheet? This sheet here has a specific name.
A chart sheet.
Very good, that's correct. So please take note of this, all of you. A chart that goes on a sheet by itself, it does not have any rows, it does not have any columns. That is called a chart sheet. Only a chart will be on this sheet here. Alright, we're at exercise 13 now. Monitoring lunch spending. So after spending money for lunch over a week, You wish to use a chart to track your trend of spending. Using the set of data below, create a line chart to show this trend. Remember that formatting data is useful even when creating charts. So she would have highlighted the data. She typed in the following data. Format the values to currency with no decimal places. Create a line chart to show the total payments in each language. So you want to just recreate that for us. We want a line chart. Good. So we have a line chart there. We can easily add in our quick elements. Quick layout. Number 9, and add in all of our necessary elements that we need here. Good. So you guys should know how to add your axis title, your horizontal axis, your vertical axis, how to edit the main title. When you're moving a chart, how do you move a chart? Like if you, not to another sheet, but physically move the chart.
You click and drag.
Right? But specifically where do you click and drag?
The finger goes somewhere at the top.
Well, it could be anywhere, but you're mostly clicking a blank area. It has to be a blank area because if you click on the lines, Jada, click on the lines. No, inside the chart. Notice there, you're highlighting that part. And if you actually click and drag that, only that will move. So that's why you have to click on a blank area, because if you don't, it's going to move some element of the chart. Good, so you already created a chart. Change the type to a pie chart. How do you change it to a pie chart now? Go to design, change chart type, very good. And you go to pie, very good. So looking at the two charts there, which would be most appropriate? That's something you guys need to know. Which chart is most appropriate to use? Which chart is more appropriate and why? The line graph and why?
A pie chart, uh, a pie chart like relates to individual parts in a whole, and so this would only work because you're trying to track spending, not like you don't have like a budget or anything.
Okay. Good reasoning. We're trying to track the spending. So line graphs are more effective to show trends. It's more understandable when you look at that line graph. You can clearly visualize, because remember, a graph is something you're looking at visually. You want to just look at the data, look at the chart, look at the graph, and be able to understand the information right away just by looking at it. And just by looking at the line graph, you can see that on Monday you spent a lot. You don't even need to look at the values. You can just visually look at it and say that Monday you spent a lot, and Tuesday it went down, and for the rest of the days it gradually went up. But if you were to look at a chart, yes, it can show you the comparison between the days, but it doesn't show the trend between the days. You can't see that trend as with the line graph. So yes, the pie chart is showing the how much between the days, but that trend, that movement from one day to the other, you're not going to see that in the pie. So you're going to more see that in the line. But all right, so we're on to exercise 14, fees to learn a language. So create a chart using the set of data below. The chart should compare the fees charged for teaching various foreign languages. Type the following data in the spreadsheet starting at A1. So we're looking at language, fees, and payments.
Sir, I have to stop sharing, right?
You can just finish this one off, or somebody else.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's see. Yeah, you can stop share. So Shane, Dante, and Raphael. Congratulations.
Here.
Well done to Jada and her team. A round of applause for them. So we have Shane, Dante, or Raphael. Which one of you going?
Sir, Shane was supposed to present, but he just had blackout and Rafa wasn't on holiday, so we don't have any presenting today.
And you don't have
We
a
can't present
computer?
today. No, sir.
Alright. Britisha, Brittany, Naishal, any one of you can present? Britisha, Brittany, Naishal. Britisha? Is Britisha here? Not seeing Britisha. Brittany? Britisha is here. And Aiden. Zamir here. Zamir, Crystal, well obviously. Sahid.
Sir, Ratisha said she called me just now.
Okay. So I don't understand how she messaging you and she couldn't just say that here. Jada, you want to help us? Because it seems nobody's willing. Or Rizwan and Emmanuel. Henry? Is Rizwan and Henry here? Grace, Pratima, Morano. Dependability. Jada, can you save them?
Okay, sir.
The last exercises is 17 to 19. Amina and Ramona, y'all ready to go next? We have Amina and Ramona. We have Amina. And I'm assuming. Okay. Anybody willing to volunteer for Amina's presentation for 17 to 19? You can think of it. In the meantime, we finish off the rest. All right, so exercise 14. Fudge. Exercise 14. You're supposed to enter the data, create a bar graph, bar or column chart to show the fees for each language. So we're looking at the language fees and payment. Good. So a bar or column chart to show the fees and language. Great. And then you would add in all the other elements. So we already know how to add in the rest of elements. But we can use the quick layouts, add that in, and we basically edit the information there. Good. Exercise 15, we're comparing the number of payments for each classes. So we're continuing with exercise 14 to compare the numbers. Use the same data in exercise 14. Create a bar or column chart to show the number of payments for each class. So we're looking at payments and class and language. So we need a bar or column chart for payment and language. So what key do we hold to select two non-adjacent cells? Anyone?
Control.
Control, very good. So Jada would have held the control key to highlight those two non-adjacent columns so that she can have that in the chart there. And then she would add the rest of information, the elements and so on. Good. Exercise 16. Determining the total cost for each language. It expands upon 14 once again. Type the heading total in D1. Okay, good. And use a formula in cell D2 to calculate the total cost for Chinese classes. Did anyone have a hard time coming up with this formula? Anyone had a hard time? Alright, so if you did or you did not had a hard time, a tip for your future, whenever you get a question that's asking you to create a formula, I think I would have mentioned this already, think of it mathematically. If you were to do it in maths, how would you calculate it? In this example here, if you were to calculate total, you would multiply payments by fee. So once you have that done mathematically, then you would want to just transpose it now into a formula. And so instead of using the actual values, you would use the cell names. So in this case, B2 times C2. So we're going to have a total of 1,500 for Chinese. Escape. So if you ever encounter what just happened to Jada, please remember the escape key is the key that you use. So autofill the data. Good, so we use that little square. And then we drag the data down, drag the formula down, so that we copied it. Good. Create a bar or column chart to show total payments for each language. So language and total. Very good. So that's it for exercise 16 there, and you would add in your rest of elements. Any volunteers for 17 to 19? No volunteers. All right, Jada. Exercise 17. You're monitoring the spending worksheet, or open the monitoring and spending worksheet. Type the data in the table in exercise 13. Print the data in the spreadsheet. If you do not have a printer, try printing the data to a PDF file. Select print chart. Select print, select and print the chart. So we're gonna just use this sheet here. If you click on the chart and you go to print, so because we selected a chart, it's only gonna print the chart. So go back and select a cell and now go to print. So it's going to print what it sees on the sheet, or basically what can fit on a page. So now if you wanted the data and the chart, you would need to position it neatly on the that section so that you can have it printed on the page. Now, how will you print a PDF? Jada, do you know?
No, sir.
So right where you see select printer, where your printer is offline, there is a print a PDF, Microsoft print a PDF. And that's actually how you print a document to a PDF file. So if you click print, it's actually gonna pop up for you to give the file a name, save it as a PDF. So if you give it a name, and you click save, and it's actually going to print all the information into that PDF. So you guys can try that on your computer, how to print to a PDF. Alright, so exercise 18 now. So this is a bit technical. Importing data. Jada, I think you'll have to screen share your entire screen in order for us to get this here. Or here's what, I'll do this part here. So you can stop share. Alright, let me know when you guys can see my screen.
I'm seeing your screen, sir.
Great. So the exercise says for us to open a notepad and type the following data. So we're going to type name, type, and it says use tab. So if you're on your keyboard, you have a tab key. So we're supposed to press tab in order to separate the data. Now I'm going to just type in the data for now and then explain to you why we're doing this and why it actually doesn't matter if the data is not aligned. I think I put a space somewhere. No. Okay. So grade 10 and that's 10. So please note that I typed in all the data and the only thing I press to separate all of the data is a tab key. That's all I pressed. I didn't press space. I didn't insert anything. All I pressed is tab. And if you notice, the data is not aligned with each other. That is not important. Please take note of that. Aligning the data is not important here. The important part is using one method of separating the data. That's what's important. So I'm going to save this file on my desktop. It's just to name it as dogs. Right. And so we're going to go to spreadsheet now. And we're going to import this data. So to import, we're going to go to data. And this is the import section, everything here. And we're going to import from text. Because the text file we just created. So we're importing from this text file. I have to locate the text file now. So I'm going to go to desktop, click on dogs, and import. So this is where you guys really need to focus on. If you notice, I have a preview here of my table. If you notice, everything is neatly aligned. I have the name column, I have the type column, I have the age column. Even though in my text file it is not aligned. The reason being is because the system recognized how all of the data was separated. How the data is separated is called the delimiter. The delimiter separates the data, and once you're using one standard delimiter, the system will recognize it. So for example, I'm going to click on this drop down, and you're going to see the other delimiters you can use. You can use a colon, you can use comma, equals, semicolon, space, and tab. So because we use tab, we're going to select tab. And if you notice, the data was neatly separated. Now look what happens when I select comma. Notice everything is in one column now. It's not separated. Now look what happens. I'm going to cancel this here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete the tab and I'm going to put comma for all of them. So remember, I'm using one method of separating all of my data. So in this case here, I'm using a comma. I'm going to save this, go back to Excel, go back to import from text, click on dogs, enter, and notice all of my columns neatly organized. So, and if you notice at the top here, I have comma as the delimiter. If I choose back tab, notice it's going to be incorrect. It's going to put everything into one column because tab is not separating the data anymore. It's now the comma. So when you use the correct delimiter, the correct separator, it is going to correctly separate the data. So I'm going to click on load, and notice it just imported all of my data correctly, each into its own column here. So did you guys follow that on are you guys following on the importing?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Now the last thing is exercise 19, and it's about linking cells together. So here's a question. Have any of you ever wondered, a cell has to be unique. Is that the case? Are all cells supposed to be unique in naming? Is that true or false?
True.
Sir.
Are cell names supposed to be unique?
Yes, sir.
Yes, they're supposed to be unique. That's how we identify them. Each cell is supposed to be unique. Now the question is, how can we have A1 in sheet 2 and A1 in sheet 1? Why don't they conflict with each other? Anybody ever wonder about that? Any of you ever wonder about that? Why don't they conflict with each other? Well, the reason why they don't conflict with each other is because think of each sheet like its own world. So inside of a sheet, it's only restricted to inside of the sheet. The cells are only restricted inside the sheet. So this A1 will never see this A1 over here. But we can link them together. How do we do that? Well, say for instance, I have 20 here, I have 20 here. So in sheet 2, I can do equal, I click on the sheet, I click on the cell, and I press enter, I notice I have 20 over here. I'm going to delete that one. So we just focus on this one here. What is happening here, this value here that's in this cell, I'm going to put 40 now, is now linked to this cell over here. And how you can tell is this exclamation mark here. So we already have A1 that's representing the cell, but before it is the name of the sheet. If you notice at the bottom here, the name of the sheet with exclamation mark. That there is indicating which sheet to look at. So basically what it's saying, look at sheet 1 and look at the A1 cell in sheet 1, this here. So cell A1, look at this sheet here, look at this cell, and whatever is in that cell is going to be in the other sheet. Now you can also link two spreadsheets together. So I'm going to open another spreadsheet. So notice the name of the file at the top, book 1 and book 2. That's important to remember. So I'm going to open another sheet. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to click equal over here on the right hand side. And then I'm just going to click on the cell over here. Enter. And notice the what is inside of my cell now. Notice the same sheet 1 exclamation mark. That's indicating the name of the sheet. But before that, I have the name of the file in square brackets. So what is basically saying here? In the file book 2, in the sheet 1, link cell A1. That's all it's basically saying. So whatever I put inside of the cell here will appear in the cell on the right where I linked it with. So that is basically how you can tell when two sheets are linked together and when two files or two workbooks are linked together. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Alright, so that's basically it for spreadsheets and all of our exercises. So if you guys don't have any questions, we are going to end here for today.
Okay, sir.